Behind the Shades.
Welcome to an amazing, amazing person, Rachel. How are you doing today?
Oh, Train, that's sweet. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been fun kind of watching your journey and being a part of it, and getting to come and pop in and have these conversations, watching the evolution of your life and your biz. And same with me, right? Things are just ever changing and flowing. So glad to be here again to have a chat.
Absolutely. I don't know for you, but it's been a crazy year. A lot of highs, a lot of lows, especially in Canada here, but catch us up to
Mm.
speed. What have you been up to and what's going on in the beautiful world of Rachel Grant?
All right, all right. Well, I forget when the last time was that we talked. Do you remember? I don't remember.
10 years ago.
Um, it's so silly. Well, today has been a big year of personal milestones. My mom died in February. And then this fall, my 9-year relationship came to completion. And so we are, kind of navigating that transition of, how to be maybe friends. I don't know. That's a whole topic, right? I feel like there's just no clear answer when it comes to those things. Left on good terms for good reasons, but it's a big transition when you've had a daily with someone for 9 years and to kind of move into that. So those have been okay. All right, 2023. Like, yeah, that was a lot. And it's also been as I've been navigating those losses and just the challenges, like the whole process of, completing a relationship and all the different feelings and the communication and all that. I really drew on my Beyond Surviving toolkit, right? Everything that I teach my clients ultimately, while they are tools that supported me in healing from sexual trauma, they're also just, I always say to my clients, right? It's a Beyond Surviving lifestyle. How do we use these strategies to release trauma, but also then continue to live, from an empowered place and as life throws things at us as things happen, right? To be able to navigate that. So I've been really thankful in that way. To have those tools and that skill set. It would not be the same if I were going through any of this, years and years ago. It'd be a much harder process. And of course, leaning on my community and being able to do that. So those are some big, tough changes. Some things I've been working on this year that have been really interesting is doing some trainings with a detention center in North Carolina, so a women's detention center, and partnering with CPTSD Foundation and Brave Step organization, Karagende organization. So just starting to move more into collaboration with nonprofits to bring my workshops to their communities. So that's been really, edifying, doing more kind of teaching and workshops, and then just continuing my one-on-one work in my group. But as I look ahead to 2024, I've really declared it, honey, as like the year of easy. It's got to be like, if it ain't easy, I ain't doing it. So I'm just I can really feel myself in this energetic pause, sort of like around business and relationships, and just wanting next year to be just super, super simple, not really pressing too much or striving too much, but just letting things flow. So that's a little bit about where I'm at. How about you? What's been going on?
Well, it's been interesting year, similar to yours. I know the last time we spoke about our family, how you had your situation with your mother, and I had mine with both my parents. So it's been one full year since they both got sick, one with cancer and the one with something else. And
Mm-hmm.
we've had to make a number of changes. And one thing that I realize is that my fancy, well, a car's not fancy, but a fancy car, a big house, and things of that nature, it doesn't really mean as much as the connection that, in a way, that I could have lost with both of my parents. So it was a year of reflection. And to your point, it was a year that I wanted to be easy. So what I did was I didn't fly anywhere. I just drove. I drove and I drove and I drove and I drove and I drove. It reminded me of like those old school 90s movies where you have the couple here and they get into an argument and the man runs out, he just jumps in his car, he just drives, right? And he sees these beautiful sceneries. It was like,
Yeah.
the terrain story. But one thing I found about myself was I pulled from the strength of the woman that I was working with in the charity that I assist, and to hear their success stories inspired me to know that despite everything that I was going through, there was people who were there looking to me for support and who didn't realize maybe that their success was keeping me going because sometimes the shoulders that we have they're not strong enough to carry the load that we're trying to carry. So it was definitely
Yeah.
a interesting and thought and heartfelt year for me, 2023.
I see. I see. How's the fam now? Where are they at health wise?
They're both well. So my mother went back to work and she loves it. Right. It's like it
Okay.
was that missing thing in her
Good.
life. My dad, his
Yeah.
health wasn't as bad, even though it lasted well, cancer in a way is forever, right? But
Okay.
what he was going through lasted. We didn't figure out what it was. He just it could have been like old age and just catching up with him. But both
Mm,
turned to work as a way to kind of get back into their routine. And there were some changes that had to be made from a health perspective, from a diet perspective, and just being active. But one thing that they realize is that the support when they were healthy was different than the support when they were unhealthy. And they began to realize certain things, which kind of made them sad in a way, but also it was enlightening for them.
I see. Kind of like the who weathers the storms with you and who falls away, kind of that kind of a thing they went through. Yeah, I can relate to that for sure. For sure, for sure. Are you the only child? I don't think I've ever asked you that if you have siblings.
Yes, yeah. So I'm not the only child. I'm the oldest of three. So it's myself, my
Okay.
sister, and my brother. Um, but there was a coming together that I haven't seen since I was like maybe in my teenage years. So it was good to see like the rallying of the immediate family
Yeah.
members.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, I'm thinking about, I have a friend right now who's he's about 78 and going through a lot of, life transitions and just watching, there's just so much isolation and it's tough, right? And I've had to kind of start to build my team to support me and supporting him. And yeah, just kind of thinking about this theme that's showing up a little bit, like how when it's like this ladder of support, right? So we have people who are leaning on us, right? And needing our support and our mentorship. And then when we're a wreck or when we're feelings challenged, right? Where do we lean? And do we have that in place? And then do we have those support systems around us? It's so critical. And I know there was a time in my life where, certainly as a result of abuse, I just was very, very isolated. I just didn't really have much capacity for asking for support. I had a lot of internal belief systems like I'm all on my own. I've got to handle this by myself that were really born out of those younger days that then I just carried into my teen years and my young adult years and then da 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 da. And then along the way I really started to challenge that. It actually was born out of me going through a divorce and holding that for like 6 months before I even told my best friend. And when I finally did speak up to her about it, ooh, she let me have it, but she let me have it in a way that helped me to see the way that that was dysfunctional, that it wasn't a gift or it wasn't me being gracious or kind. I was like, I'm such a good person. I don't burden anyone with my problems. It's such a racket because we're not like people really who care about us really want to be in our lives and really want to be there to support us. So yeah, kind of building that capacity. Have you always been like open to support? Has that been an area that you've struggled or had to learn and develop, or how's that been for you?
I was that way. I was the type of person that I would reach out to any and everyone, especially when I was, well, especially like years prior. I think my situation was, or at least my experience, is that when I would reach out to people, they would disappoint or they would make the situation worse. I remember a
Mm,
time where even recently actually, so around the same time my parents got sick last year, one of my friends, he collapsed at work and died.
mm. Oh
So
shit.
yeah, it was devastating. And I wasn't there at the time, but his boss sent me an email because he knew we were close. And he's one of those friends that you probably have them, right? You know, every time you guys plan to meet up, it's like, okay, it doesn't work today, but maybe next week. We just kept saying next week and next week, and now there's no more next weeks. And I went to someone and I shared that story. I was like, hey, my friend just passed away. I just need this comfort. And the person was, they made me feel so bad afterwards, right? And it
Mhm.
reminded me of my 20s where I would have people who I would reach out to and say, hey, I'm just going through this. I just want someone to talk to. And they would just be dismissive. So it made me have a hard shell as a person when it came to that. And I spent a lot of times just trying to save the world. And it put me in a difficult
Mhm.
situation to reach out to people for help at that point because it was always like once bitten, twice shy. Right.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
now
I get that.
I've been fortunate that because I changed the type of people I keep around me, I've been able to have that softer side. I understood that you don't need all these people who are pretending to be tough because deep down they're really not, and they're not benefiting me at that time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I think it's so true. Like we have these lived experiences that it's like it creates these equations in our mind, right? Like asking for support means being disappointed, being let down, being made to feel even worse about my situation than when I started, right? Or I hear often from my clients things like, being vulnerable, being exposed, being weak, sometimes it has a lot to do with like this idea of now I'm indebted to someone, like now I owe that person. And yeah, we have these lived experiences that ultimately create those equations. And a big part of, the work I do and just my own personal journey is switching up the equation and beginning to connect into, well, what's to gain and what could be the benefits, and kind of shifting that lens and shifting the mindset to say, because that negativity bias is so strong, right? Like if we were to look at a chart of all the times you've asked for support and you got that like shitty response or not really great, and the times when it's good, it actually your column for good might actually be stronger. But because of the hurt and because of that, the way that the brain wants to shell off and protect based on painful things, the negative starts to take up more space in our mind and in our spirit. And so when we can shift that lens and say, no, you know what, actually, asking for support can bring in love and connection and understanding, help me get things done more quickly, give me perspective. But something you said that I think is so critical is the who, right? Like we learn, right? Because sometimes it's not the fact that we're asking for support, it's the who we're asking for support from. Right, that's our bad. Like we gotta learn and like build better, connections around us, and we have people around us who have the capacity and the wherewithal.
And that reminds me of a funny story where there's someone that their way of comforting you was they would have sex with you,
Ah,
right?
mm-hmm.
So it was just like this weird thing. Like you could like, oh, my mother just died. Okay. And,
Right.
and it's like this, it's
Like,
this
well, Mama,
weird, yeah,
having
it's
it
like this
here.
weird reaction. Because I could see some men saying that, oh, you know what, my uncle, my dog, my cat, like everyone's dying at that point, right? But I was trying to understand what made her think like that was the option to
That was
provide
the
to
thing to
someone,
do. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
right? Like imagine
Yeah.
instead of a shoulder, it's everything,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. That emotional, right? The emotional intelligence that's not there. And the way, yeah, I can see that. I can see the way that sometimes for some people, when they're completely at a loss, they go to what they think they have to offer, maybe, which, for that person may be sex. And yeah, there's a misalignment there. So, my goodness. Yeah,
Yeah,
what a thing.
I was trying to understand. I would ask her. I'll try to understand it. I
Mm.
was like, okay, what makes you go to that right away? Not a comforting word, not, okay, just let me
Huh.
be in your arms. Like, why is it that? Because there could be some underlying trauma there that we don't know,
Sure.
right? Like maybe when she was going through whatever it is that she was going through, maybe that's how the person apologized or tried to make her feel better, right? It's always interesting to
Hmm.
see how people respond to traumatic events in their life. And
Hmm.
you know of that personally as well as with the women and the men and the people that you work with, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. The It's what did she say? I'm so curious. Like, was she able to answer? Did she have any insight into herself about it? Like, oh, it's because, or is it like you were speaking a foreign language?
Yeah, because she sometimes watches this. No,
Hey, hey, girl, hey, girl.
no, she didn't have an answer. She seemed confused because it
Okay,
wasn't
yeah,
she didn't think it was inappropriate,
right, right.
right? So like when you try to have that type of conversation, it's like, hey, this is not something I need at the moment. But
Mm-hmm.
then so when you try to have that conversation with her, you can see in her face that she's starting to take it as like a rejection. Because she's starting to
I
think,
see.
okay, you're turning my help down, but my help
Mhm.
is this way. But instead of just saying that, no, the type of help that you're offering is not what I need something else.
Right, right. Now that makes sense. Yeah, it's interesting. And, it's not coming from a malicious place. It's just, for whatever reason, that place of, and, sometimes I know we talk about like love language. Oftentimes we, look to give what is comforting to us, right? Which might not necessarily be the thing. So, one of the things that I've had to really learn how to do is preface sometimes what I need. Ultimately, in most contexts, it's really just three things. It's either I need empathy and encouragement, or I need resources, and or I need feedback and advice. And maybe I'm going to add a fourth category now: sex. Physical touch, being held, and and so one kind of higher form of communication is beginning to actually name that at the beginning, right? Oh, I've got something on my mind, and what I could really use from you today is some empathy and encouragement, right? Or, gosh, I'm really struggling with this problem, and I could really use your advice. Like, how would you handle it? One of the things that I like about that, by kind of prefacing with the type of support, is it actually helps your listener listen from a lens, right? Because otherwise you jump on in and you're just talking, and maybe what you want is empathy, but maybe you're talking to me, and I love to listen through the lens of solving and fixing. And so that's where my brain is working as you're talking. And then we get to the end and you want empathy, and I have to, oh, okay, wait a second, like, let me reorient to that. Whereas if you tell me to listen from the lens of being empathetic or encouraging, then as you're sharing, I can really be generating that and holding that and be ready to offer that when comes the time for me to show up for you.
Yes, because I see what you mean. Because then if you look at the five love languages, like mine would be words of affirmation, for example. So someone having that
Mm,
conversation and going from there, or even quality time. Okay, I'm going through this. Let's sit together. Let's talk about it. Where, like anything in life, you have the center point and then you have the two extremes to the left and to the right. So the physical touch, someone might take that, okay, I'm holding this person, and there might be a reaction on a sexual level, then it just deviates into
yeah.
that, right? And if you're going to use it to get over someone, when it comes to a breakup, you might as well use it to, to help someone get over someone that has maybe passed on or something along those lines.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, a way of dealing with grief or loss. Oh, interesting. Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, that's curious. Yeah. Yeah, so, finding our voice and finding our way towards, being able, because life just is going to keep happening. I mean, I guess I'm about to have a birthday. Next Wednesday is my birthday, and it just doesn't seem to stop, honey. And like, things just keep coming. And so finding ways to stay resourced, finding ways to stay connected, trying to find better and better ways to communicate and to show up. And but one thing, I mean, I'm really happy. Just this stage in life feels really good in the sense of being more grounded in in who I am more than I ever have been. If you're finding that as you're getting older too, all my elders would always say to me, it's going to be that way. And when I was young, I was like, whatever. But no, they were right. Of course, they were right. And it gets easier and easier in some ways to just kind of show up, do you, be yourself. Yeah.
I'm glad that I was able to survive my 20s because I love my 30s so much. And my birthday is in April.
Mm,
And before I do that, happy birthday, of course. I know it's
thank
early,
you.
but
That's all
I know
right.
you're probably turning 25, right? So
Exactly.
there you go. She's younger than me, everyone. She's younger than me. And I realized I realized that I knew nothing when I was younger, right? You don't know what you don't know. But now, like the way I view life and the appreciation I have for life as I get older is something that you're so right that I couldn't even imagine when I was younger.
Yeah, it's so true. And I love, you said earlier just like what we prioritize and what we value and what we feel like chasing after, right? Like, is it at the house? Is it the car? Is it the thing? And, coming into a deeper understanding about how, the relationships and the connections, these are the things that are going to comfort you in your later years and just in life in general. And not even for later years, like right now. It's just so much more meaningful and edifying and supportive in that way to be connected into those things. It's all right to want those things and to have those things, but as we know, years and years and years ago, I was at a workshop, and I remember I was in San Francisco. It was the early days of San Francisco, so I hadn't really been around what I'm going to call, well, just rich people. Had like a lot, buddy. And I remember, particularly some of the men in this group coming up to the microphone and, talking about how much they had and how much they'd acquire. And then there was just still such sadness in them and loss and disconnection and despair. And, they're coming into that realization. So, finding that balance between the things that we have and the things that we are. Mm.
Do you think that as you grow more and more into yourself that your views and maybe your objectives will change, let's say 2024, 2025, and so on?
Mhm. Yeah, I think so. I think there's a way in which, a lot of the kind of uh I don't know. Similarly, I really enjoyed like my 30s. I just come out of that divorce. I was in a real season of revelation, right? And learning and growing and a lot of hustle too, right? Like building the business and um trying to figure out, my next step in life and going back to school. And now there's this way in which like all of that hustle is um being realized, I guess you would say. Like the life that I imagined and was hoping to like craft and create for myself, I'm actually living it now. I'm in the state of living. So my job right now is contentment, right? Because you can get to that and then you can still find something wrong with it. Like you still find yourself complaining or being frustrated. I'm like, wait, girl, you like this is exactly what you were hoping to like create for yourself. And or just that sometimes that ever feeling like, shouldn't I be doing more? Shouldn't I be doing more? Which is why I think next year for me is one of those years of like, it's okay to take a breath. It's okay to not always be on the hustle. It's okay to not always be striving to the next big thing. And I think, yeah, that's going to expand. And then what I think that does for me, Terrain, is then it re-energizes, right? Then it's this way in which I could imagine 2025 being a year of like next evolution and like what do I want to create next, or what's the next level going to look like for me. Does that make sense?
It does, because I had to learn to slow down.
Yeah.
And one of the ways I learned to slow down, as we were discussing earlier, was I just reduced my travel. If I was going to go anywhere, I had to drive. And it made me appreciate being grounded more, right? I wasn't escaping the stress by saying, okay, I have to be on a beach to decompress, or
Hmm.
I have to be here, my favorite destination, to clear my mind. I got back into reading. I started going to the gym a little bit more. I started to do research. So the things that I used to love doing, I got back into it. Now I'm getting back into my movies. I
Nice.
watched Addicted to Love, which is a 90s romance comedy movie. And I was like, I forgot how much I used to love Meg Ryan.
Brian, she's the sweetest. Oh my goodness. Of course,
Is,
my favorite
right?
for her is When Harry Met Sally. How can she outdo that role? But I haven't seen the one you just talked about. I'll have to check that one out. But yeah, like giving yourself like, okay, I'm gonna do the things that I enjoy, and something you said there that really sparked something for me is this idea of we live for vacation. And I just hate that so much, right? Like we live for our time off. Oh, I'll decompress when I have that time off. And yeah, stop me if I already told this story on another episode, but I was watching one of those watching one of those like survival. I love TV. Like I just come out about it now. Like it's a go. I love to read. I love TV. I love movies. I love anyway. I was watching Alone, which was one of those survival like drop them off in the woods kind of a thing. And one of the women, she's busy at trying to build her little clay oven, and it's not going well, and she kind of has a little meltdown and temper tantrum, and she says, oh, this is just so frustrating because I have just all this stuff I have to do, and I have to hunt for my food, and I have to build this thing, and I have to create that, and I just don't have any time for being. And I just started cracking up to rain because I thought, no, like all of that is the being. It's not do all of that to then go be. Like what it's supposed to be happening right now, honey. Like, and so like that for me, like it was confirmation, something I had kind of been already, but I don't know, it just locked and loaded something for me really solidly. Like I'm not working for vacation. I'm not working for time off. I'm not waiting until X, week of the holidays to decompress and to de-stress and to feel myself and to feel my feelings. Like it's in the moment. It's right here. It's right now.
That is so true. Like we will kill ourselves just to say December 25th or January 1st or my birthday or vacation. It's coming up. So you kind of justify all the stress that you're putting yourself through because that day off where you know you're going to run on that plane and just fly away somewhere else. And I'll share that there's some vacations I've been on. The planning alone is stressful. Oh my
Yeah.
lord. I know you share a story, everyone.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I call it stress laxing, all right? Like I'm not actually relaxing. I'm stress laxing. I'm like, what am I doing? That can be happen when you're on vacation or just on a weekend or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. We plan, we fill it all up, right? With the next list of to-dos or the things that I have to's and all of that, expectations. Yeah.
One thing else, it was hard for me to enjoy my weekends up until maybe a couple
Mm.
months ago because what I would do is I would plan so much that I didn't have the opportunity to sleep in. I would still wake up at 7 a.m. I would still try to be burning the candle at both ends. But what I noticed on the weekends, because I know I didn't have to wake up early for work, I would still be up late. So the weekends, so the Friday nights, I would be up until let's say 1 a.m. and then the Saturday nights, 2 a.m. And I'm thinking, what have I accomplished? Right
Mm.
during these days. So what I started to do is just routine. Wake up whenever it is you want to wake up. Do your thing,
Mm.
relax, 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 because it's so much easier and more affordable just to enjoy your weekends.
Yeah. 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 That when I hear that, I think a lot about the idea of following your impulse. And that when we are constantly scheduled, I love a schedule. I mean, I'm a planner, but when we're constantly have every moment of the day filled up, or we have kind of these swing cycles of, like you were describing schedules. Yeah, what I really enjoy, I'll have maybe one thing. I've gotten really conservative about my time. That's something definitely that's happening as I'm getting older. My people points, like you got to really earn my people points and for me to spend them on you, like it really has to count. So, but being able to, I'll just use the weekend analogy, kind of exactly wake up in flow. Like, when does my body want to rise? My first thought is like, okay, body, what do you want right now? What's the next thing? And kind of throughout the day, just listening to those impulses and kind of following. And some days it's like, let me watch these movies. Some days it's like, wow, I really want to go out for a stroll, or it's a combination of things. But listening to ourselves, and when we're so jam-packed with schedule and busy in life, then we cannot hear ourselves anymore. And we're just tasking our lives away, and yuck.
Oh yeah, it's like you become a taskmaster, right? I gotta do this, I gotta do that. And by
Mm.
the time you wake up, you're 90 years old and you're like, where did my life go?
What happened? Yeah. And I know, for a lot of people, that comes from this place of like their worth and their value being very collapsed and tied to like outcomes, success, standards, goals. And one of the lessons that we work on, excuse me, and Beyond Surviving, that I really love is this practice of beginning to separate out our worth and our value from tasking, from standards, goals. Because then, oftentimes, once we do that separation, then all of that angst, kind of goes away. It doesn't mean that we stop having standards or we stop having goals, but we just stop assigning our worth and our value to it. So it's like, I got it done, I didn't get it done. Okay, fine, either way, my worth and my value is still over here and, in good shape.
So I know that we're coming to the end of our session and it's always so fast when I'm speaking to you, but what's some advice you'd want to give to the next group of people regarding what we talked about, where they just want to separate things and don't let them collapse on each other so they're overdoing themselves and maybe in some ways impacting their health mentally and physically?
Mm. Well, I'll just share the tool. Like, the first place where we start in Beyond Surviving is just language and awareness. And when we start to articulate the truth of the matter, I did the dishes today. I'm awesome. I'm fabulous. I have not done the dishes for a week. I am awesome. I am fabulous. Right? Like, just beginning to say it out loud, like legit. I sent that email today. Fabulous. Great. I'm awesome. Ooh, man, I've been putting that email off for 3 days. I am still just as awesome and as fabulous, right? It's a way of bringing that mindful awareness to the fact that these two things are not connected. My value, my worth always stays here. It never moves. It's always full up. Value is intrinsic. It is something that you own, not something that you earn. So stop trying to go out and earn it.